This filament dryer has every feature that people have been asking for years. In fact, to date, this is probably the most feature-rich, robust dryer that I've ever got to unbox and set up. Well, today we're going to explore the Chitu Systems FilaPartner E1 dryer. It supports upwards of 4 rolls of filament, and it actually has multiple zones so that you can dry different types of filament at the same time. It supports a modular system for easy storage, a color touch screen, and a ton of other features. So today we're going to get to the bottom of it, see if it's worth it, right after this.
Welcome to the show that sets your mind free. Tech and gadgets, 3D surprise.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Captain Creativity. I am your host, David Merrill, and today we're going to dive right into Chitu FilaPartner E1 dryer. Now, normally I don't get very excited about dryers, but I know that this is the first dryer that I gone to unbox and review that supports multiple types of filament and can be dried simultaneously. And they do that by putting them in their own zone. So in the past, you might have had dryers that could support up to 4 rolls of filament, but it could only dry all that filament with the same setting. Well, this guy is meant to change all that, and you can actually now dry your TPU separately from your PLA under different settings. But beyond that, they've done a bunch of other things, so let's get right into it. Okay, so right off the bat, you got your manual, you got these boxes here. Okay, so let's do a full breakdown on everything that comes in the box. You have the 2 storage containers, which are modular and obviously can be taken off and put away for storage. You'll also be getting these humidity indicators, and this is not for you to be able to determine humidity when it's on the base station. Obviously, that's what the LCD screen is for. This is actually meant to go into the storage box so that when you put this on a shelf, you have some kind of an indicator of the condition inside the box. You'll also get 8 of these PTFE tubes that will go into these silicone inserts all around the box, and that will allow you to feed your filament directly into the printer from the box itself. And then of course you have the power cord, and that's basically it. Okay, so let's go ahead and start off with putting in these humidity sensors into the box. So you have this latch over here that will lock and unlock it. And then basically right underneath over here, there is a compartment, and it's in that compartment that there's a little plastic piece that comes right off. You put it right on top, and then you slide it right back into that compartment, and you're good to go. And then that way, when this is in storage, you could just basically look at it and see what condition the environment is inside. All right, so when you get the unit, you'll notice that there are these rollers, and some of these might have came loose in shipping, and you'll have these rods, and on each end there will be a ball bearing here as well as here. Make sure those are in there, don't lose those. Mine actually kind of came out, and that's fine. You just put them right back in and everything works perfectly fine. You also have these sections here, and this is where you could put in the desiccant packets. You take the cover like so, and that's it. You just pop it in, and you're good to go. And so then this rod goes over here. So you're gonna have to remove these rods in order to get into these compartments here to add the desiccant packets if you wanna give it a little bit of extra help. The same is the case on the other side as well, and in the other box. Another thing that I really liked about this box was the fact that when it comes to storage, you're gonna find these little metal plates on the bottom side of it, and you could just take these, put them to cover the holes over there, and then you're ready for storage. Just like that. Okay, and when it comes to connecting those PTFE tubes, all you're gonna do is take out this little silicone insert, and you're gonna stick it right through to the other side, and you're good to go. And it's always nice when they give you options, because ultimately you're gonna have to decide what's the best way for your setup in terms of loading up the filament. So whether you wanna go from the back or through the front, going through the back side over here is actually better for me for my setup. Now, another thing that the boxes are really good for is that when they are being stored, they're designed in such a way that they're easily stackable, just like so. And so when it comes to larger rolls of filament, it can actually handle also 2-kilogram rolls as well. Here's one, for example, from Prusa, a nice large 2-kilogram roll, and it spins really nicely in there and fits perfectly. So that's pretty good. One of the key things, as I mentioned earlier, about the system is that it could actually dry 2 different types of filament, so that you could dry TPU separately from PLA, and each of these different filaments have different dryer settings, so you can now do that. You won't be able to do 4 different types of filament, but you could do TPU in this chamber and PLA in this chamber, so you could do up to 2 different filament types. As you can see here, it now has this really nice large touch screen, a color LCD screen that pivots very nicely in the front. And let's go take a look at the interface and see how easy it is to use. One thing I will definitely notice about the touch screen is that it is not a capacitive touch, it's resistive, so you do have to press on the screen itself. It's not like a capacitive touch where you could just touch it ever so gently and then it just goes. This one actually needs a little bit of pressure, but not too much pressure. So that's the only downside I would say to the LCD screen. All right, so when you get into the system interface and you want to set the temperature for the dryer box, you choose which one you want, 1 or 2. Over here, you'll choose the temperature. Over there, you'll put in the temperature. And then over here, you have the time. Over here, you'll notice this will give you the indicator of how humid it is inside the storage chamber. You can see it's currently at 55%. So, not great. We're going to go ahead and turn that on and hopefully change that. So now if you don't know what temperature to set, the best thing to do is go down to the bottom left. There's a little paper icon, and you'll notice that you'll have a bunch of profiles in here. So for example, it says PLA and PETG. We're going to want to set that to 4 hours. And so you just click on that, and then you click OK. Now you'll notice that by default, the language setting on my unit was in Chinese. We're going to want to change that. And to do that, you'll go right over here to Settings. You'll then go down here to the second page. And you're going to click this button over here to change it to English. And then, I think that one is it. Boom. So now that that's done, you can now see everything is now in English, which is great. And you do have the ability to change the temperature unit from Celsius to Fahrenheit. But going back to over here, you can go ahead, choose what you want, hit Apply, and then begin by hitting the play button. And that's it. Your dryer box number 1 is now in progress. Just so you know which one is 1 and 2, 1 is closer to the LCD screen, 2 is the one on the back of the base. So a couple of other things here that we have. You can actually create your own custom settings so that you could put in different types of materials. If you have something custom you want to put in, you could do that right over here. And then in the settings screen, you have a couple of different options. As I mentioned, you could change between Celsius and Fahrenheit. You could decide to turn the screen off after 5 minutes or 30 minutes, etc., to save, just so that it doesn't light up or to kind of save energy. And then you'll notice over here that this has a firmware update setting. This is probably one of the first independent dryer boxes that I've actually seen come with a firmware capability. That's actually really cool. So I guess if they have new software updates, you can always go ahead and update it. The only thing is you'll have to put it on a USB, and there's actually a USB-C port located right on the side. So another key feature that's inside the dryer box is automatic drying. And so basically when the humidity gets really high, it kicks in and brings down the humidity into the box to about 25%. And it will do that automatically. So you could decide to either leave that on and always keep everything nice and dry in here, or you could go ahead and do that on a more manual basis. Now, another feature that this thing has is something they call silent mode. Obviously, we all know that dryer boxes and multicolor filament systems that have drying capability all make a lot of noise. So in order to help reduce that noise level, they've put in something called silent mode. And when you activate that silent mode, it actually kind of reduces the amount of power that is going into the system. And they say that the reduction is somewhere around about 30%. So it's not going to be as efficient. It's probably take a little longer to fully dry your filament. But if you want to get a quieter environment, you could turn that setting on. Now I'm going to show how to turn on automatic drying and silent mode. So once you're in the interface, still under intelligent control, all you'll have to do is click on automatic drying, just like that. And the thing will, if it needs it right away, it's probably going to kick in immediately. Now, if you want to go ahead and activate that silent mode, that setting is right over here, and you click on, and you definitely hear the difference. Let me see if I can play you that audio differently. So this is in normal mode, and this is it in silent mode. Normal, silent. So you definitely hear that reduction, and you could hear it's going a little bit slower now than it was before. Now, another thing I really do like about this is that they thought about safety. And this is really great, not just for your home, but especially important if you're running a STEM lab in a school. Another thing that it will do is it will make sure not to activate the dryer if the thing isn't installed correctly. So if you don't have anything here, and because this is hot air, you certainly don't want a kid touching it and having this dryer running if there's nothing on the base. So this way, if something is removed, right away, it should detect that removal and then shut the system down. Now I'm going to show you where it is. So inside the interface, you'll go to Settings, again under Intelligent Control, and Filament Box Automatic Identification. This is that safety feature that I was referring to. Okay, so we're going to go ahead now and put that safety feature to the test. And so we're going to go ahead and start the dryer. And all right, so the heater is turned on. It's trying to dry box number 1. And now all I'm going to do is I am going to now remove this box, and I should get a warning. And I do. You can see right over here that it goes ahead and gives you that warning. And then in a few moments, the unit shuts down. But one of the things I could tell right away is that it cuts the heat. So while the air might still be blowing as it's winding the system down, it ends up actually immediately switching over to just regular air coming out, not hot air, and that would protect anyone from getting burnt on this. And then usually after a few moments, it then shuts down completely, because I guess it's not good for the unit to shut off on a drop of a dime. I don't know about that, but I do know that it does shut down in a few moments. But until it does, you don't get that hot air. Okay, now we're gonna test it one more way in terms of putting it on incorrectly. So we're gonna go ahead and try to jam it up. Okay, so here we go. We're gonna go ahead and take these magnetic plates. I'm gonna put it on one. I'm gonna pretend like, I forgot to take off one of the plates. So I'm gonna put it on like that. And you can definitely see now that it's not 100% seated. It's on a little bit, so you could definitely make that mistake. I could definitely see how people would forget to remove the storage plates and put it on, and you definitely don't want to be turning that on the base. When there's a blockage, it's not good. So let's go ahead now and see if it'll actually let me do it, and I'm going to hit start. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, it feels like it's no longer on the base, and it detected that, and it kicked in. Okay, now I'm just doing another test. I'm putting both plates on, and I just want to see what would happen if it would kick in. It's really not sitting flush anymore on the base. I want to see if it will detect that it's not in. So yeah, it says place box 1 on the base properly. So it definitely detects that those metal plates are there. Okay, so let's talk about price. You can actually get this from their website for about $139, and I'm going to put a link in the description below. All right, so let's discuss the pros and cons of the system. Well, first, we have the fact that it is a dual zone or dual chamber solution, so that you can dry multiple filaments at the same time. This is something that everyone's been asking for a while, and now it's here. Another thing that I'm a big fan of is the modular system. I've seen this before on other solutions. Sunlu has one that has that modular system where you have that base and then you could buy additional boxes and use them for storage. I like that concept, and I think it's fantastic, and I'm glad they added it into this solution. Now, the other pro is also a little bit of a con as well, and that comes to silent mode. I love the fact that they created a setting in there that said, listen, we could still accomplish what you're trying to do and dry your filament. It might take a little bit slower, but at least it will be quieter. I like that. The con of that is that it's not that much quieter, but there is a difference. Another thing that is also a pro and a con is the touchscreen. I love the fact that it's a color touchscreen, but the con is that it's not a capacitive touchscreen and instead is a resistive touchscreen. And I could definitely tell you, when we are so used to capacitive screens, which exist on most of our 3D printers, our smartphones, etc., you expect to press the button and then see it click. Unfortunately, with a resistive touchscreen, you do have to apply a little bit of pressure. And sometimes I did have to press on something multiple times because I didn't hit it hard enough. Another major pro about the system is definitely the capacity. I love the fact that they're putting it all together, but also allowing you to have up to 4 rolls of filament. And the fact that each box could handle larger rolls, like 2-kilogram rolls. So that's a major plus for me because I like capacity on these types of systems, and I wouldn't really want a dryer system today that doesn't handle at least 4 rolls of filament. The next pro is possibly a con, but I love the fact that when it comes to the storage unit, that it's just through these magnetic plates. And I'll definitely tell you that having it being magnetic, it's so much easier to ensure that it doesn't get lost and it snaps on right to the bottom of it. Comparatively to the Sunlu system, it requires a gasket and you have to apply pressure and force to push it in. But you could rest assured that you're going to get a really good seal there. And that comes to the con. There's been some people who have been commenting on this and saying, well, it doesn't really seal it as well as a gasket would around the perimeter of the hole. I think when it comes down to it, it really is a question of whether or not the amount of atmosphere in here is dropping or changing so dramatically. I don't believe it is, and I definitely do see that there is a tighter seal because it's not just going onto plastic. There is a rubber gasket around the perimeter. So when this thing does sit against it, it does make a pretty good seal. So another pro is definitely the safety feature. I really like that they're trying to think of safety, and especially for people who are going to put this in their home or in their classroom, that is a key thing to consider. So we definitely ran into one con when it came to that safety feature. So when I removed it, I got that notification warning right away. Didn't immediately shut down the unit, and that might be because there's something that doesn't allow it to just shut off on a drop of a dime. Maybe that causes some damage to the system, who knows? But it didn't shut off. However, it did in fact shut off the heating component so that you wouldn't burn yourself. So even though if this was removed and the system was still going, it did alert you, and then eventually it does shut off. It did take about a minute or so for it to like completely shut off, but right away, the hot air did stop immediately. So what I would have liked to have seen is that as soon as you pull this off, that fan in that system should have just shut off immediately. So I'm not sure as to why they can't do that, but I would feel that through this firmware capability, that might be an easy fix. Who knows? Another thing that we noticed about it was that there was a mechanism on the base that would determine whether or not the storage box was seated properly. And we noticed that it was only on one side. And so sure enough, if I were to accidentally leave the magnetic plate on, if I did that on the side where the sensor is, well then yeah, it's going to say, hey, you didn't put this on correctly. But if I forgot it only on the other side and then I seated it on the base, well then it actually still ran even though the thing wasn't fully seated onto the base. So I'm not exactly sure how I feel about that because that I think does need to be addressed. Another thing that I really like about this is they were thinking about people who have the Bamboo Lab A1 or the A1 Mini and an AMS light. And so if you have that AMS light, they actually put in a nice diagram, which you can see over here, and it actually shows you where to put the PTFE tubes and which one should correspond to which roll or which slot on the AMS light machine. Anyway, I could see this as being a great accessory for somebody who has the AMS light because there isn't any drying option for that. Unless you go out to buy the AMS2, which I think is going to offer compatibility with the A1, but it's a lot more money. In fact, it's like 2 or 3 times the price. Anyway, this is a great solution for that make and model, but also a lot of other entry-level 3D printers as well. All right, so at the end of the day, I'm actually really impressed with this system. I think that they put everything into it, and I really applaud them. Yes, there are a couple of cons here and there, but I think the pros of an all-in-one solution with like 7 to 10 different features built into one system, all for about $139, I think that's a win. And I definitely would recommend it for any maker lab or a STEM lab in a school. So if you want to go ahead and take full advantage of the modular storage solution and buy some more boxes, each one of these boxes go for about $39. I'm also going to put a link into the single storage solution in the description below. Now, in terms of price point, $39, I do think it's a little bit on the high end. I would love to have seen it somewhere in the $25, $30 price range, but that's just me. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell, and happy printing.